Hi, I'm Daniel Sloan, ESM System Advisor with the Office of the State Building Surveyor. Welcome to this practitioner education series. Today we're going to walk through the obligations that building owners and in practice owners corporations have for maintaining essential safety measures in Victorian apartment buildings. We'll cover why these systems matter, what the law requires and how to ensure a practical and compliant maintenance regime is in place. This presentation focuses specifically on the documentation and information that service contractors must provide, because these records are the evidence that the systems are being properly maintained and that the occupants are protected. By the end of today's session, you'll understand key definitions, mandatory pre-service notifications, record-keeping requirements, the types of reports that must be produced and when they are due, and exactly what information must be included in these reports. Our goal is to make sure you can clearly identify what compliant documentation looks like and recognise when obligations are not being met. To begin, it's important to understand the two key definitions that underpin this standard. The first is a responsible entity. This is a person or organisation responsible for the routine service of fire protection systems. In most cases, this will be the building owner, but it can also be the occupier or the owner's agent. All documentation obligations under the standard are directed to this entity. The second is the service provider or contractor. This is an organisation or person engaged to carry out routine service, including inspection, testing, preventive maintenance and surveys. It's important to be clear, these obligations are mandatory. If the required documentation is not provided, this is a breach of AS 1851 and can result in regulatory non-compliance. These records are not administrative paperwork. They are legal evidence that your fire protection systems are being maintained. Now that we've clarified those roles, let's move on to the first set of contractor obligations, pre-service notifications. Before any routine service is carried out, contractors must meet specific notification requirements under Clause 1.14 of AS 1851. The first requirement is upcoming service notifications. The contractor must inform the responsible entity or their nominated contact that routine service is going to take place. This is particularly important where the work may impact building, occupants, or operations. This ensures transparency and allows appropriate planning before any works begin. The second type of notification is even more critical when systems are affected. The second key requirement is impairment notification. Where servicing activities will impair a fire protection system, even temporarily, the contractor must notify the responsible entity. This notification must clearly state which systems are affected, how they are affected, and the expected duration of the impairment. This is critical because while systems are impaired, the building is more vulnerable. It allows you to implement alternative safety measures such as fire watch or increased patrols until the system is fully operational again. There are two additional requirements under Clause 1.14 that are just as critical. First, if servicing may trigger an alarm signal, the contractor must notify the monitoring service provider in advance. This prevents unnecessary emergency response and false alarms. Secondly, and most importantly, at the completion of any service, all system controls must be returned to their normal operating state. If anything is left impaired, disabled, or not fully restored to normal, two things must happen. It must be recorded in the system logbook, and the responsible entity must be notified immediately, not later, immediately. The principle here is simple. You must always know the operational state of your fire protection system. Now that we understand notifications, let's move on to one of the most important obligations, service records. Service records are your primary evidence that maintenance is being performed. AS 1851 allows three formats: a hard copy logbook, an electronic log with a printed signed copy, or tags and labels supported by a summary record. But regardless of the format, one rule always applies. A hard copy must be left on site at the completion of every service visit. If tags or labels are used, the supporting summary record must be provided within 1 week, and that is the only case where documentation can follow the visit. This requirement ensures there is always a physical record available on site for inspection or audit. Let's now break down exactly what must be included in those records. Clause 1.16.3 sets out mandatory requirements for service records, and every single item must be included. These include building name and address, date and frequency of service, identification and location of equipment, all activities performed, including results, pass or fail. Beyond logbooks, tags and labels must have strict requirements. Additionally, every defect or non-conformance must be recorded in full detail, including classification, location and rectification. The responsible entity must be identified. The service person must provide their name, signature and date, and the service provider company name must be recorded. If even one of these items is missing, the record is non-compliant. This is one of the most common areas where failures occur, particularly in defect recording. So records should be regularly audited. Where tags or labels are used, clause 1.16.4 specifies exactly what must be included. Each tag must show the title, AS1851 service record, a coded figure indicating service frequency, the date of service, and carry forward the previous year's record. That continuity is essential. It allows the tag to demonstrate historical servicing. Without this information, the tag does not meet compliance requirements. Tags alone don't carry enough detail and must be supported by another document. A summary record must be provided to the responsible entity within 1 week of service. This record must include detailed information such as building details, dates of service and scheduled service, equipment serviced and not serviced, reasons for anything not serviced, defects and non-conformances, service personnel details and signatures. This acts as a full record of work performed and exceptions identified. Importantly, it provides the detail that tags cannot capture on their own. Next, we move on to defect reporting, which is arguably one of the most critical obligations under the standard, with strict timeframes based on severity. A critical defect is one that renders the system inoperative. Examples include a sprinkler system without water supply, an inoperative fire indicator panel. When a critical defect is identified, the responsible entity must be notified before leaving site. It must be confirmed in writing within 24 hours, and it must be reconfirmed every time it is identified. For other issues, non-critical defects within 1 week, non-conformances within 1 week, out of tolerance activities within 1 week after the tolerance period. The rule of thumb is simple. Critical means 24 hours, everything else means 1 week. Now let's look at the most common asset, extinguishers. There are special requirements for fire extinguishers under clause 10.2.10. If an extinguisher is defective and must be removed, a replacement must be installed immediately. Never leave an empty bracket. A defect report and action required report must both be provided. All actions must be recorded in the service record, and if disposal is required, it must be approved by the owner. The extinguisher is an asset of the building. It cannot simply be removed without accountability. Moving on to yearly condition reporting. The yearly condition report is the principal compliance document under AS 1851. It must be issued annually by the service contractor to the responsible entity, without exception. This report includes full system identification, applicable design standards, all outstanding defects and non-conformances, a summary of service activity, and a formal statement of system condition. This document is the formal evidence of compliance and supports regulatory obligations across jurisdictions. In addition, any missed service must be acknowledged. Any system rendered non-operational must be clearly stated, and any involvement of multiple service providers must be disclosed. This is the document regulators will ask for first, and it must be complete, accurate, and signed. To bring this together, let's look at a simple checklist of what must be provided. Clause 1.17.2 sets 10 mandatory items for the yearly condition report. Building name and address, the period covered, description and location of every system in scope, the approved design standard for each, outstanding defects. Every unrectified critical defect lives here, so if you don't receive it, request it. outstanding non-conformances, a summary of the year's service records, a statement of the system condition and whether it's in line with the approved design, a professional opinion the contractor signs, the responsible entity's name and address, and the representative's name, signature, date and company. All 10 every year. Beyond the mandatory content, 3 additional requirements apply to the yearly condition report. First, it must acknowledge any missed service during the year. Hiding it isn't an option. Second, if outstanding defects make the system non-operational, that must be stated plainly so you know. Third, where different parties did portions of the service, this must be acknowledged. In Victoria and most jurisdictions, this report supports your annual essential safety measures report or equivalent. Your statutory compliance and occupant safety depend on it being accurate and on time. This all ties in with the system interface testing. Where fire systems interface with other building systems, lifts, smoke fans, doors, HVAC, end-to-end interface tests must be done and records provided to you under Clause 1.12 and Appendix D. Each record must include each interface tested in cause and effect terms, the name and signature of who verified it, date and time, the acceptance signature of your representative, and any defects found. Pass-fail results also go in the relevant system records, and a hard copy must be kept on site at all times. The contractor runs and documents the test. Defects found also go on the yearly condition report. Let's now review a quick reference for a complete notification and document checklist. What to provide and when for each visit. Pre-service impairment notice, Clause 1.14 before work. Monitoring provider notice, Clause 1.14 before work where signals may transmit. Complete service records, Clause 1.16.2 on the day left on site. Service tag or label, Clause 1.16.4 on the day attached to the equipment. Summary record where tags used, Clause 1.16.5 within 1 week. Notice of impairment not restored to normal, Clause 1.14 before leaving site. Verbal critical defect report, Clause 1.17.1 before leaving site. Written critical defect confirmation within 24 hours. Non-critical defect or non-conformance within 1 week. Out of tolerance activity within 1 week of the tolerance period ending. The yearly condition report, issued annually, covering all services, outstanding defects and non-conformances, complete, accurate, signed and dated. System interface test records, hard copies kept on site, with any defects also flagged in the yearly condition report. 2 annual obligations. The yearly condition report is the one a regulator or auditor asks for first, so be ready to produce it. The key takeaways from this presentation are: hard copy records must always be left on site. Critical defects require immediate escalation. Most other issues must be reported within 1 week. The yearly condition report is mandatory every year. Tags must be supported by summary records. And all records must be retained for at least 7 years. Your documentation is not just administrative, it's legal evidence that systems are maintained and occupants are protected. If the documentation is incomplete, delayed or missing, then from a regulatory perspective, the compliance does not exist. Today we've covered the full set of documentation obligations under AS 1851, including notifications, service records, defect reporting, and annual compliance documentation. To close, I'll leave you with one final message. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. Thank you.